the Honourable Tauhenere hasn't been the only one to raise a very loud voice. I call
Mr. Speaker.
Eugenie Sage.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, tomorrow we'll have a budget that shows that National has forgotten that New Zealanders care about the environment. It will be a budget that shows that National has forgotten that New Zealanders are proud of our country, our stunning landscapes and our distinctive plants and wildlife, from the melodic kokako, which is much more melodic than Mr. Hanare, to the kauri, and that it's forgotten that New Zealanders want our lands, our waters and our coasts well looked after. Mr. Speaker, this government has shown that it doesn't care about our environment. It's got very weak policies like the National Policy Statement on Fresh Water. It doesn't care because of its attacks on one of our most important environmental laws, the Resource Management Act. The Minister claims it's not about lowering environmental protection. That's not what the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment has said. Mr. Speaker, with the emphasis on quick decisions rather than sound decisions, the government is reducing the ability of local communities to have their say. And with its proposals to gut the heart of the Act by stripping out the environmental criteria which is supposed to guide decisions, it's turning the Act into one that promotes economic development at the environment's expense. And the government is weakening our environmental laws so that high-impact development projects get less scrutiny by councils, less scrutiny by the community, and get a faster and easier ride through the resource consent process. And at the same time as it's weakening the regulatory regime, it's giving more handouts to intensive agriculture. Tomorrow's budget will subsidise irrigators by an $80 million grant to the government's new irrigation company to spend on large regional water schemes. And this is despite the fact that nearly every study on water quality shows that land use intensification leads to water pollution. And the government's proposing to provide further handouts to irrigators by spending some $400 million from the proceeds of selling our energy companies. So the Mighty River share deal will mean that New Zealanders lose the dividends that that company provided, so that dairy farmers, and in areas like Hawke's Bay, it will be dairy farmers because they will be the only ones that can afford the water, so that dairy farmers take over on the Ruatanapa Plains rather than horticulture and other more varied land uses. This won't be a budget about sustainable development because that is not a concept that this government understands. It will be a budget about debt, about increasing the ecological debt on present and future generations because of this government's focus on exploiting nature for short-term gains. And we've seen that in Minister Joyce's business growth agenda and the regional report he put out recently. We've got petroleum block offers in Northland and Taranaki, minerals exploration permits in Northland, irrigation development in Hawke's Bay, Canterbury and the Wairarapa, and commercialisation of conservation land in Tasman, Nelson and Marlborough as the route to economic nirvana for the regions. So it's a budget that burdens present and future generations with more water pollution, with polluted waters and aquifers, because the government hasn't noticed that its promotion of irrigation has a huge cost to the environment and to people. Selwyn District, the Minister's own electorate, the centre of dairying with the big Fonterra factory, there have been dozens of problems with gastroenteritis in Darfield, communities in Arthurs Pass, Springfield, Sheffield and Rolleston all having to boil their water. This is going to be a budget which doesn't recognise that we need to invest in the environment as the basis for a healthy economy and a healthy society. We've seen the Business Association and Franz Joseph telling the Minister that we need to invest in conservation because of the importance of conservation to the West Coast economy and how we need well-resourced dock officers. Yet what do we see? The government finding $158 million for tourism promotion, but a paltry $5 million for the Department of Conservation, despite the protection of those conservation assets being central to the 100% pure New Zealand brand. The Green Party believes we need a budget and a government that looks after our environment and looks after all New Zealanders, not just the top 2%.